I imagine you've either heard the rumor, or accepted as fact, that Warcraft was actually supposed to be a Warhammer game. Well, you've probably heard that StarCraft was supposed to be a Warhammer game. The rumor seems to have deviated a bit from the source. It turns out all the people that believe that rumor are wrong. It's not a total loss, as the non-believers are only half right, and not for the reason they probably think. Before we dive into this, let's restate the question very clearly. Was Warcraft originally supposed to be a Warhammer game? The answer begins all the way back to when Blizzard was still known as Silicon and Synapse, and is revealed by Patrick Wyatt's blog all the way back in 2012. After work and during almost every lunch break, Patrick Wyatt, as well as many other employees of soon-to-be Blizzard, would play Westwood Studios' Dune 2. Dune 2 was arguably the first modern RTS, with a scrolling world map, real-time unit construction and movement, and individual unit combat. Of course, being one of the first of its kind, it also had its share of glaring flaws. Flaws that Wyatt and the others really wanted to fix, as well as wanting to be able to play the game in competitive multiplayer matches against each other. Without any forethought, planning, budgeting, or even artists and other development staff, Wyatt would become the initial sole developer on what was essentially Dune 3. If you're here just for the answer to the question, was Warcraft originally supposed to be a Warhammer game, that's your answer. No, it wasn't. If you'd like to find out when Warhammer came into the picture, hang out with me a little longer as I uncover the full story. And trust me, the story's a little more complicated than the more common explanations I've seen around the web. Working by himself on the project, Patrick Wyatt's background was in programming, not art. And so he would screenshot the different artwork in Dune 2 to use for his game, just like David Brevik did with XCOM for the first Diablo game. In just a few weeks, he would have a fully playable framework for the game completed. All it was missing now was original art and different gameplay and control features. At this point in its development, you couldn't even build units out of structures. You had to type in commands to spawn them. Keeping in mind that this game was supposed to be Dune 2 but better, he would recreate it and then build from it organically into all the features he thought Dune was missing. As the development continued, Wyatt's team would grow from the loneliest number to a handful of developers, of which notably included Sam Didier, the artist whose drawings of heroic characters and epic fantasy scenes would eventually become the definitive art style for Blizzard's games and would play the part as the lead art director for the project. Bob Fitch, who got transferred by Blizzard's president Alan Adam to working on the project with Wyatt because the project he was supposed to be working on was moving at a snail's pace due to Bob's disdain for it, which is a lot better than just getting fired for not doing your work. It wasn't until after all of this that we finally get to the point in which Warhammer enters the picture. With the new artists joining onto the project, they would begin borrowing and to an extent basing a lot of the artwork on Warhammer. When people say the game is a knockoff of Warhammer, they're half correct. The art style actually is. But the gameplay itself and the genesis of the project is all based on Dune 2. With the extreme similarities between the two IPs' artwork in mind, Blizzard's president, Alan Adam, was concerned with them making the most money possible on the game. The arguably easiest way to do this, aside from that silly notion of just making a good game, is brand recognition. This game that would become Warcraft, being made by a company not known for their development of original high fantasy games, did not have brand recognition. Alan Adam wanted to cure this by licensing the game under the Warhammer title from Games Workshop. The initial talks were not gaining traction in business terms, but there was also a much closer force that abhorred the idea altogether. They didn't want to lose creative control of their own universe to some other company. That force was virtually the entire development team. They had already gone through a terrible time with DC Comics while working on Death and Return of Superman and Justice League Task Force, and wanted to never have to suffer through that experience again. With the whole team being against it, Alan didn't see any reason to send another offer that could only be worse than the others for Blizzard, while simultaneously pissing off the entire development team. So in summary, the programmers were big Dune 2 players and initially made an improved clone of it. It was the artists that came later who based the artwork off of Warhammer. Again, not in an official capacity, they just liked that art style. And it was the president of Blizzard that was simply trying to make sure that the game would be as financially successful as possible, that would then open an offer to Games Workshop for the Warhammer license further down the line. But then the development team, jaded from their past experiences with having to concede all creative direction to a different company, would end up fighting against it. So, was Warcraft originally supposed to be a Warhammer game? And was there really any point in time during its development when it seemed as though it might actually become one? No, it wasn't. The real question is, if Games Workshop were more accepting of the licensing offer in the first place, would have Alan Adam gone against the wishes of his developers and gone forward with the deal? But I'll leave you with that and wrap this up. Thanks so much for hanging out, and if you made it this far into the video, please remember to leave a like. If you want to see content like this and more, subscribe to the channel. This is Mitchell Godsend. Have a good one.